Hello, welcome everyone, and welcome back to our second recording of today to put us back on track as we are going to continue going through the book of Proverbs. We had to do two today because we missed a day over the weekend. Hey, when life gets a life in, you better keep on moving with it. And so sometimes that means we might not stay on schedule, but we're going to do our best to make sure that we complete the task that is at hand. And for right now, that is reading Proverbs, a proverb at a time for these first 31 days in the month of January. Hey, I'm glad that you have chosen to come back on and be with me on this afternoon as we are leading to this evening. We're going to read through Proverbs number 13, and we're going to be reading this from the English Standard Version as well. And so let's go quickly into the Word of God. This is what Proverbs 13 says, according to the English Standard Version. It says, a wise son hears his father's instructions, but a scoffer does not listen to rebuke. The fruit from his mouth, the fruit of his mouth, a man eats what is good. But the desires of a treacherous is for violence. Whoever guards his mouth preserves his life. He who opens wide his lips comes to ruin. The soul of the sluggard craves and gets nothing, while the soul of the diligent is richly supplied. The righteous hates falsehoods, but the wicked brings shame and disgrace. Righteousness guards him whose way is blameless, but sin overthrows the wicked. One pretends to be rich, yet has nothing. Another pretends to be poor, yet has great wealth. The ransom of a man's life is his wealth, but a poor man hears no threat. The light of the righteous rejoices, but the lamp of the wicked will be put out. By insolence comes nothing but strife. But with those who take advice is wisdom. Wealth gained hastily will dwindle, but whoever gathers little by little will increase. Hope deferred makes the heart sick, but a desire fulfilled is a tree of life. Whoever despises the word brings destruction on himself, but he who reveres the commandment will be rewarded. The teaching of the wise is a fountain of life, that one may turn away from the snares of death. Good sense wins favor, but the way of the treacherous is their ruin. Every prudent man acts with knowledge, but a fool flaunts his folly. A wicked messenger falls into trouble, but a faithful envoy brings healing. Poverty and disgrace comes to him who ignores instruction, but whoever heeds reproof is honored. A desire fulfilled is sweet to the soul, but to turn away from evil is an abomination to fools. Whoever walks with the wisdom is wise, but the companion of fools will suffer harm. Disaster pursues sinners, but the righteous are rewarded with good. A good man leaves an inheritance to his children's children, but the sinner wealth is laid up for the righteous. The fallow ground of the poor would yield much food, but it is swept away through injustice. Whoever spares the rod hates his son, but he who loves him is diligent to discipline him. The righteous has enough to satisfy his appetite, but the belly of the wicked suffers want. That concludes our reading out of Proverbs 13. We've read in its entirety the 25 verses that are a part of Proverbs Proverbs 13. And so just as we do, we see that there are just some key things that we can glean from, that we could see here in this book of Proverbs, as this chapter really contains various sayings and teachings that offer wise counsel and guidance on how we are to live a righteous and fulfilling life. In Proverbs 13, we can see some of the things like how it utilizes the value of life. It gives us some important things to seek after and understand wisdom when it comes down to living a life that is fulfilled. But then also looks at some of the consequences of actions. And that's one of the things I want to pull off here today. And it also looks at things, how we use our words and how powerful our speech can be, and how our speech, the words that we use, can bring about some help or they can bring about harm. My wife and I, we was recently talking about that word harm and hurt, because sometimes there's a difference between the two. When I walk in the middle of the night with no lights on, I may stub my toe. That right there, I will hurt myself. It wasn't nothing done intentional. It just happened to happen. And it lined up. I did something, and the result of it was that I hurt myself. Notice I used the word result, that this is what happened in response to it. But the difference between hurt and being harmful is that now what I am doing, it has an intent to bring that hurt. And so then, in other words, if I utilize someone's weak moment, if I knew someone's deepest, darkest secrets and I started plastering them on Facebook or something, if I knew what is going to get up under somebody's skin and I'm utilizing it in a bad and malicious way, that is being harmful. First of all, let's go right back to the whole stubbing my foot. Now, I could stub my toe on the bed. That's going to cause hurt. But if my wife had put broken glass in my path, knowing that that was the direction that I was going to go, now when I step on that glass and I hurt my foot, that was harm. Why? Because what she did had an intention attached to it. So now it is her action that has not just resulted in me getting hurt, but it was the reason why she did this, is so that I can be hurt. And so I want to draw your attention to those two small words in explaining that when I stubbed my toe on the bed, so to speak, it just came as a result. But when someone brings about harm, that is the reason why they may have done such and such thing. And so just be able to notice that and understand those different types of things. But hey, there was a scripture in here, there was a verse in here that really hit at me when I was reading it. I'm gonna see if I can find it quickly. All right, so in verse 10, it uses this phrase. It says, by insolence comes nothing but strife. By insolence comes nothing but strife. When looking at that word insolence, it could refer to being rude, being disrespectful, having a behavior that operates in this manner or way. When you have a behavior or you're using your speech in a manner that does not respect someone else. It is having this bold and arrogant manner about yourself. It addresses some things in an aggressive approach. And so when I think about that, it says, by insolence, by this disrespectful behavior comes nothing but strife. I notice here that what it compared it to, it says, but those who take advice is wisdom. So in this insolence ways is in contrast to taking advice. And I began to think about what that would look like and what does that mean. And it led me to think about what happened with Solomon's son. When Solomon's son, when he came into the kingship, there was a point in time where where the children of Israel, those up under his leadership, they had came to him, and I'm just going to paraphrase it, but they came to him and they said, your father, he worked us greatly. And if you could remember, or if you know, or maybe this is new news to you, under his father's reign, there was a lot of building that was going on. The kingdom was being built at the time of his leadership. So yes, there was a lot that was going on. And during that time, it said the people that was like, we worked really hard. We was dedicated to your father, and we did all that we were supposed to do. And then he comes in and he says, they come to him and they say, and they are petitioning for some mercy. And so now his son, this nice young ruler, he takes what they have said. He said, look, go and come back to me. And I believe it was in 3 days, whatever it was, and come back to me at a later time, and I will have an answer for you. This son of Solomon, he went and he spoke with the elders, the wise men, the men that had been with his father during his leadership reign. And they spoke to him and gave him some sound advice. Ain't that what we're talking about here in this portion of the text? It said, but those who take advice is wisdom. They have some advice for him, Pastor Davis. They said, look, yes, that is true. And if you ease your hands, if you show a little mercy, I'm sure you would have the allegiance of the people throughout the time of your rulership. But how many of you know that every time someone speaks, it does not always have wisdom attached to it? He has some friends of his that I would just use it in my own, use my own spiritual imagination, because they didn't have nothing to fear. They were friends with the king. So surely they wouldn't be the ones working all extra hard. Surely they wouldn't be the ones having to clean the dirt from under their nails. Surely they wasn't going to be the ones that was going to have to sacrifice the time that they would want to spend with their family to see their children be raised. Surely they weren't the ones that was going to not be able to go out on vacations. Surely they was not going to be the ones that was going to be without. They were friends with the king. And these friends that was friends with the king says, you know what? They want mercy. Look, what you ought to do to them is tell them that your pinky finger is going to be heavier than your father's hand. What this son did, he had some wise wisdom, some advice, some wise advice on one hand. But he had some rude and disrespectful thoughts on the other. and he listened to his friends and put the decree out. And because of that, that is what led to the split of the kingdom. The Israel became, you had 10 tribes that separated, and then there were 2. And so you have the 10 tribes that were, we know them throughout the remainder of the Bible as the northern kingdom, the kingdom of Israel. Then you have the other 2 tribes, the tribes of Judah. And we see, so when you read in those 2 different tribes in the Bible, that is how it came about. Because the words of wisdom that is right here in verse 10 of this 13th proverb was not adhered to. It said, by insolence comes nothing but strife, but with those who take advice is wisdom. He took the wrong advice, and it led to strife. And a strife that remained all the way throughout the biblical history. And so we could see that as a biblical example. And so what I want to challenge you with here today is a twofold challenge. First and foremost, I want you to really consider, where do you get your advice from? I want you to truly consider, who do you run to when you don't know what to do? When you are perplexed between 1 to 2 things, who is it that has the voice that will be the vote that will move it in one direction or the other? And what type of people are these? Do they have wise counsel? Or are they just some people that's going to always stand in your corner and be your cheering squad? Be careful, because it could cause more strife than what it brings remedies. Secondly, I want you to consider what type, if someone came to you, are you going to be insolent? Are you going to be rude and disrespectful? Are you not going to have a respect or a care for others? Is your response going to be arrogant and bold on how you deal with one another? Or will you have some sound advice that is wisdom, that's going to build up, that's going to encourage, that is going to be engaging? One of the ways that we can do that as we go through 2025 with our friends or loved ones, I will submit to you 3 things that you can do to, I don't want to say guard, but that can help you move in a direction of building up and not tearing down. 1, I want you to be encouraging. Many of times when people seek advice from other people, what they are really seeking is some courage to move in a particular manner or a way. To have encouragement, it literally means a state of having courage and imputed into you. And so when someone comes to you, what are you going to do that's going to put courage inside of them to make the better choices? But second of all, not only be encouraging, be engaging. To truly be engaging, it's going to take some time of compassion and empathy. When you are empathetic to something, It's being able to see things from somebody else's perspective. It's coming and arriving at the situation, not assuming that you already have all the answers. This is something difficult to be able to do at times when we are engaging and being compassionate for others, when we think we got the upper hand or the better hand. But truth of the matter be told, all of us at some level has been privileged something. I know, not to make this political, but just for you to understand what I mean. There's a thing that they call white privilege. Therefore, meaning that there is some things that those of that Caucasian that may not be privy to those who are colored or have darker skin. There are some benefits that just may automatically come along because of their race and their identity. That's literally, without politicizing it, is what is meant by that. So when I say we are all privileged something, what I am saying, there is in each and every one of us, we have been saved or been removed from experiencing some things that maybe somebody else have experienced. I have lived a rocky life. I've had hills, I've had valleys, I've had climbing up mountains. I've been through all sorts of things. But the one thing that I can say, that I have been home privileged. What do you mean by that? I have never had a moment where I did not have a place where I could stay. And so at times when I get to a blessed opportunity to go minister to those that are struggling with homelessness, I have to realize that they have some experiences that I have been privileged not to experience. But now, if you want to talk about food privilege, I done had them days. When I was a kid, I used to think that the savings, they talk about saving this and saving that. I thought that was just saving the other half of the sandwich so I could have something to eat later on. I mean, so I could walk that walk, I can talk that path. But there is always, my whole point is there is something that someone else may be experiencing that you may not have experienced. And even if you have experienced similar things, everything is internalized and experienced individually. So we must be, I'm challenging you to be encouraging. I'm challenging you to be engaging. But I'm also going to challenge you to be edifying. What is going to happen with the advice you will give? Is this really going to build some people up? And does the building up have some people that are going to be victimized by your way of getting a step ahead? The good advice that moves in wisdom's way, I believe, is advice that is in encouraging, advice that is engaging, advice that is edifying, that is building up. All right. This is our reading for today. Now, Lord's willing, we're back on track, and I will be before you tomorrow between that 2:30 and 3 o'clock, where we will continue to experience the Word of God, a chapter at a time. And as we're going through this month of January, that we'll be doing so through the book of Proverbs. But for now, may God bless you and may God keep you. That is my humble prayer.